As we can see, this is the correlation picture. Work through sections of W3 School's Python machine learning section. Links there. Installed Visual Studio Code on desktop and preferring it over PyCharm. Exported my MySQL database to CSV. Set up project folder on desktop for machine learning. Ran mean, median, and mode sample using NumPy, SciPy, Pandas, and my data in CSV format to run under Flask, pull data from my SQL database for HTML unemployment, poverty and SNAP, and output a page called Learn HTML. Ran data distribution section using this, modified my learning.html page to display the static histograms. Here's the histograms, a bit of foreshadowing here, poverty and unemployment histograms, create scatter plots. At this point, I'm just going to speed along a little bit. Oh, yep, we got the regression part here from, the previous week, using multiple linear regression model. Unfortunately, this was when the linear, excuse me. Okay. Created scatter plots for unemployment and poverty, and create linear regression scatter plot to explore the relationship. Did a polynomial regression to see if that model fit data. It did not. Ran trained test models to see such and such. Use multiple linear regression model to predict things. Not quite sure where I have it in the report, but recently did figure out a better way of handling the linear regression. Essentially figured out that H and I was causing the regression to not fit, and cutting out H and I made regression models and scatter plots fit much better. Let's see, a constant plan, but did not completed. Unfortunately, the chloropath was a dream from the start, but not all dreams get realized. The API call to New York Times, unfortunately, was too unwieldy, which was not satisfactory, so that got cut as well. Impact project completion. Let's see, project closure. Main functions of project are complete. The main application is a Flask application that connects to a MySQL database. The Flask application uses 3 different routes for rendering HTML templates and form submissions. The routes include a main page, a states page, and a learn page. Flask uses the concept of routes to retrieve the form data from individual web pages, process that data, and return it in a render statement. Flask application uses the following Python libraries and is set up using from Flask, import Flask. Code's there for you to read. And the Flask application includes a connection to a MySQL database. Connection configuration is shown below. The fields in the MySQL database include a primary key, date, state, average annual H&I, average annual unemployment, average annual poverty, and average annual SNAP. This represents annual summary data for the Human Needs Index, unemployment, poverty, and SNAP recipient for each state and the District of Columbia for the years 2004 through 2022. SNAP participation rate is determined by dividing the number of SNAP recipients for a state and year into the population for that state and year. SNAP recipient percentages are projected for 2021 and 2022. The index route gets data from a form submission and posts data back in a render statement. The main functions in the main index.html page are a line chart, 2 bar charts, and statistics representing all four of those elements for all the states in the District of Columbia for a chosen date range. This page also represents minimum, maximum, and mean for each statistic for all states in the District of Columbia for the chosen date range. And let's see, the learning route gets data from a form submission, the states route gets data from a form submission, post data back using a render statement. Main functions for the state route is largely similar to the previous one. However, it focuses on a particular state instead of the entire US. The learning part is mostly for it primarily serves static images generated from standalone Python code, and also lets users select parameters for the three different values to estimate snap. As the project is considered complete, debugging mode has been turned off in the statement. Debugging can be enabled when further development is in progress again. Requests for modifications to the code can be submitted to the project manager. Data science, what I learned from the project and from the data. Going through the data science section was an eye-opener. It was very fun. Learned a lot about the states and how things work, and also some interesting statistical anomalies bring light to interesting quirks of certain states, like Alaska and their permanent fund, as well as their seasonal work. It's also a bit of an eye-opener, showing how some states consistently do incredibly well, like New Hampshire, and some states do consistently incredibly poorly, like Mississippi. Doing correlation tests between unemployment and poverty. So for most states, there was a high correlation, such and such. Unfortunately, H&I usually wasn't too strongly correlated, and SNAP was a little more correlated than H&I, but still not that strongly. H&I was mostly seemed to be impacted by crisis events like hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, or like the recession. Try to fit this in my multiple regression model. Oh, sorry. Here's where it talks about what I mentioned earlier about the improvements to the regression module. What I learned specific to this project was running correlation histograms, train test models for, machine learning. Obviously, always good to keep relearning that you shouldn't push a model to fit a preconceived notion. Also, learning some good ways of extrapolating data.